You're listening to the Intellectual Beats podcast, where our focus is elevating conversations. I'm your host, Shayla Kirkendall. Hi there. Welcome back to another episode on Intellectual Beats. I'm your host, Shayla Kirkendall, and today we are going to be talking about mental health. Mental health has always been an important topic. However, we are seeing it being addressed more in culture and society since the pandemic. According to Psychology Today, 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year, while 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 through 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. Today, our guest, Lauren Weiner, will be addressing mental health regarding youth and young adults. Lauren is a licensed professional counselor. In her role, she supports teen girls and young women who are experiencing feelings of anxiety as they navigate through life. Lauren is currently a counselor at the Flourishing Way, where she helps her clients feel comfortable and willing to talk through some of the challenges they are facing. As a former English teacher, Lauren is no stranger when it comes to interacting with adolescents and understanding the issues they face while at school. Lauren has been able to transition her support of youth from the classroom to the couch as she helps young women discover their place in the adult world. Through her work, Lauren continues to address the stigmas around youth, and today she will be helping us to understand why it is important to listen to our teens and young adults. So, let's get into the conversation. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yes, I'm excited for this conversation, and I'm excited for it because, mental health is a really serious issue. It's been a hot topic for quite some time, but it seems like, especially since the beginning stage of the pandemic, because we're kind of technically still in a pandemic, it seems like it's even becoming more of a prevalent topic. So I'm just so excited to get your feedback on it and really just shine a light on mental health, because I think it's something that we really can't afford to forget to address in our communities and really just even in our workspaces all together. So let's get right into the conversation. Tell us a little bit about what motivated you to become a licensed professional counselor.
Sure. So I started out as a high school teacher, and I thought that would be really fun. And it's not super fun. It's really hard. But what I did love about it was connecting with my students. And so I wondered, is there another thing that I can do where I'm still able to connect with people in that age group, but I don't have to be like the boss of them or in charge of their grades. So that led me into looking into counseling.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's definitely a good statement. Teaching is something that is not for the faint of heart. I know with my own history with being a substitute teacher, I know being in the classroom, you do witness firsthand some of the struggles that students can go through. And sometimes you have to be the right person to be able to help them sift through it in order for them to be successful, which brings me to, you're a counselor at the Flourishing Way. And your services are geared toward teens, young adults, and millennials. So tell me, why is it so important to target these 3 age categories for counseling, that is?
Sure. So for me, that just happens to be the ages that I connect with the most. So it's where I feel that I can make the most impact. More generally speaking, these are just the ages where our brains are still developing. And so much impact can still be made as far as change. We can break patterns before they're fully formed. And so that's a great thing to be able to do.
That's a good point. I like how you said breaking patterns, because I feel like the younger we are, it's easier to break bad habits, because if we don't have an outlet, like in our families, that is teenagers, that is may resort to like bad behaviors, and that can affect their life, path down the line. Why would you say it can be hard for some people, especially in the younger years, to try to have like a positive outlet and seek someone for counseling to help them work through some of the issues that they may be having?
So I think that previously counseling still had a big stigma. You went to counseling if something was wrong with you. And I'm very encouraged to see that now it's often the teenagers that are asking for counseling. They're having to ask their parents, "Can I please see a therapist?" Whereas I think even 5 or 10 years ago, it was parents saying, "You're going to therapy." It was more punitive, right? Than what's the opposite of punitive? I don't know, just helpful, right? Then, like we say, like a chance to flourish. Um, so I think that we're seeing some change there. However, there still is stigma. I definitely have experienced clients who do feel some shame about going to therapy, who do feel shame about medication. Um, Sometimes it's the parents that are the barrier. The parents don't believe in mental health, and so they're the ones that don't want their kids to go to therapy. They think it's just a teenage phase, so that can be difficult. And then, of course, there's cultural barriers as well. There's certain cultures that maybe don't agree with going outside the family to get services for that. They want to solve it in the family or perhaps within the church or something.
Yeah, very good points. Very good points. When you are speaking to a teenager and you're trying to counsel them through something, do you have the parents in the room also since they are minors, or are you able to counsel them one on one?
Most of our counseling is done one on one. The parents have to consent in the state of Texas. So we do have to get the parents to fill out all the consent forms. Um, so we do have to have their buy-in. We like to have the parents in the first session just to get a good history of our client. There's things about their early life that they probably don't know, their family history. And it's just nice to meet the parent and kind of get the vibe. And so much of what goes on with teenagers is outside their control. So we do like to work with the parents to try to change more of the environment if we can, if the parents are willing to.
Understandable for sure, definitely. I want to go back to something because you mentioned how, sometimes it is families that just may kind of have a system in place where it's like, what goes on in his house kind of stays in his house. Or you go to your local church, that's how you get your issues resolved, and then you're fine. When we were in the pandemic, that was a time of isolation for a lot of people. It could have gave people more time to seek counseling without other people knowing. Or it could have gave people time to look internally and try to address those issues and find a way to get help. How have you seen counseling sessions evolve since the pandemic?
Teletherapy, of course, is more of a norm now. It was the only way we could do it for several months. And even now that we're back, the Flourishing Way is back full time in the office. If you want to come in person, we're there for you. Um, I think most people in Houston have come back into the office. And still, if someone's sick, they're less likely to necessarily cancel. They'll just say, let's do our session online. I've had students who go to college in another city, and instead of terminating therapy, they continue therapy because we can just do it online. And I think online therapy used to feel like a lesser version of therapy. And because we had to do it for so long, we're used to it. And it just feels like this is another way to do it.
I love that because it definitely can offer convenience, especially for young adults or, like you said, college students. So I really do like that. Do you feel like people may be more confident to speak to someone in a virtual setting versus in person?
That's a good question. I think it really depends on the person and their setup, right? I've had teenagers who maybe they don't have quite a safe space in their house to talk openly. So we've had sessions, where they're in their closet or they're in their car outside. So they've had to get really creative. Um, and I do think it is harder for them to be as open. Um, Adults who live alone seem to be just as open as they would be in the office. As far as seeking therapy, I do think it does reduce a barrier in a lot of ways. You don't have to worry about the traffic time, right? So that's helpful for a lot of people who are driving from across town from work or school. So that's been nice.
No, that's a good point because commute times, that can definitely be an excuse like, hey, I don't want to travel all the way to my, session. I have to get home, make dinner, and other things of that nature. Um,
Especially here in Houston.
yes, we know how Houston traffic can be for sure. But on that note, do you think people still find some kind of excuse as to why they can't come to a session? Because, I mean, let's be honest, coming to a counseling session, there's that level of vulnerability and that you have to shed to let someone into your life so that they can kind of fix those issues. But do you still believe that people still have some kind of excuse that causes them to not work through their issues?
I think when you're ready to work through what you have to work through, you're ready. And if you're not, you're not. And that's okay. If you're not ready, you'll find the reasons to not be ready. And if you are, you'll find the ways to get through those barriers.
Very good point. Very good point. I like that. The reason why I think that's a good statement is because I think people may feel rushed into trying to seek help. Like say they have a friend that's, telling them like, hey, something's going on with you. I think you should seek help. But we do have to allow people to know their self and when they need that space to maybe process something that may have happened that could be traumatic, and then ultimately then work through it when they are ready to. So I think that's a very good statement. I actually want to shift here a little bit. I was looking at an article on Psychology Today, and the statement was that anxiety is now the leading mental health problem around the world, and the incidence of anxiety is still rising, especially among the youth. Increasing numbers of children and adolescents are being diagnosed with the anxiety disorder. Two reasons that the article lists for this was due to parenting practices that overprotect children and the rise of social media. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think social media is that main contributing factor to anxiety centered around teens and young adults, or is it something more?
I think there's a lot of things in our world right now that contribute to anxiety. Certainly, social media comes up. There's that idea of comparing someone else's highlight reel to your reality. So, Instagram, especially, is so carefully curated, um, just filtered and scheduled and just perfected before it's posted. And you look at that, and then you look at what's around you and you compare that, and oof, right? It's so much self talk of not good enough. And then not to mention, even in light of body positivity and all this, there's still the perfect bodies that are seen, and even the imperfect bodies that wear clothes so well and so confidently, I think can still get into heads of young people. And I've heard my clients talk about people, they all look so busy, they all look so happy, they have so many friends. But again, that's their highlight reel. They're posting, who knows when those events actually happened, but it makes it look like they have something going on every day. So it's a lot of comparison to unreality.
That's a very good point. And you know what? I know we live in this influencer culture, so that it's like there's this goal to rise to that kind of status because it does look so glorious. And if you get to that status, you can have like almost anything you want and you'd be on a good path. So I definitely think our youth are more um, subject to feeling like that's like the main way to have their outlet and be inspired that way. But what would you tell somebody who feels like well, influencers, they make money, and so it's a positive thing, so maybe people shouldn't look at an influencer and say they have everything, because we know they don't. But what would you still tell someone if they felt that way?
What would I tell them if they thought that influencers were positive?
Yeah, essentially.
Sure, they can be. You just have to filter them through the impact they have on you, right? So, how do I feel when I look at this content? Does it make me feel good? Does it make me feel jealous? Does it make me feel like I'm trying to achieve more? Or does it make me feel like I'm not enough? So filtering it through how it makes you feel. I'm a big advocate of a regular social media audit. So go through who you're following and ask yourself, how does this person make me feel? Does this add to my life or not? It doesn't even have to take away from your life. If it's not adding to your life, they don't really deserve a spot on your following list.
Oh my goodness. That's good. That is so good. That's,
Thank you.
Lauren, that was kind of deep.
Oh, thank you. I also am really a big fan of the new app, Be Real. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel so ahead of it because my teens told me about it. I'm never an early adopter, but it tells you like at a random time of the day, it's different every day. Take your Be Real now. And you take the picture and it takes it with the front camera and the back camera. And you have 2 minutes to do it from the time you get the notification. And it'll tell everyone if you posted late, and it'll tell everyone how many times you retook it. So the idea is that it's kind of the anti-Instagram. It's really showing what you're doing in this one moment of time.
That is so neat.
Right? And so if you wait to show like when you're doing something cool, it's going to call you out for it. Like you posted 8 hours late until you were doing something cool, which is fine.
Yeah, it's like social accountability.
Yeah. Yes, I love that.
That's a good point. But you know, when you were saying that, I started thinking about, I think it was maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, um, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, they rolled something out to where you're not able to see like certain people's, like the amount of likes that a post received. And I believe that was supposed to, again, help with that perception of a person not feeling like if they got that many likes or if I receive this many likes, that determines my worth a little bit, you know? Um, do you think that that is solely enough though for, in particular, our youth to feel like not seeing a certain amount of likes or seeing them can really truly help with their, like with their mental cognition?
I think it's a good step, but I don't think it's just about the likes. I think it's about the content.
The content and not being so curated to where everything's perfect all the time.
Yeah,
Good point.
absolutely.
Facing reality for sure. There's something I saw on your website, and I kind of want to take this back to our earlier conversation. You said, like during your college years, you wish you would have reached out to someone sooner to get help. College is one of those years to where people are truly coming to their own identity, kind of starting to break free from maybe some of those expectations that were on them growing up, and truly trying to figure out what they want to do in life. At the same time, they still may be trying to live up to the standards of their peers or the standards of their parents. What do you tell people to help them truly come into their identity so that they're not really held captive based on those expectations of others?
I do a lot of goal setting work with high school and college age students. I mean, and older. Just a lot of goal setting work. What are the words that you want to live your life by? So I love helping people come up with what are your kind of guiding principles and have those guiding principles to measure your decisions by. Right. And let's look at the messages you got from your peers, from your parents, from your teachers, from your culture, and ask yourself, are those messages that are meaningful to me as a person, or are those messages I want to leave behind?
That's good. That's good. What are the words you want to associate yourself with? Do you have you ever encountered a situation where it's just been really tough or difficult for someone to really describe the life that they want to see for themselves?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. And what I like to do when it's hard for someone to describe it is do like a wish list activity. We're really big on that in the Flourishing Way is just make a wish list. We do that ourselves, I think each year. But, if you weren't limited, if you didn't have to think about reality, if you could do anything, have anything, be anything, what would it be? And just list that out, right? If you weren't bound by reality, what would it be? And so that's kind of a good starting place sometimes, because I think we get too in our heads about, well, I would do that, but that's not realistic. And so I think that's a block for a lot of people.
I love that. Getting out your own way, getting out of your
Yes.
own head.
Yes.
Actually, that brings up a point I want to kind of follow up with. So, the younger someone is, in particular, like in their, just the younger they are in general, it's easier, I would think, to come up with where they see themselves in the future, especially as a profession. But then along the way, life happens, and then they may start to feel like that's not the profession they can maybe seek, or that's not the thing they'll be able to achieve or do one day. You mentioned that wish list that they can go back to, kind of glean from that. Kind of what are your thoughts on helping people to truly keep that goal or that wish list to their heart? Because again, life does begin to happen, so that the vision that they saw for themselves really doesn't feel like it's just that, impossible. And I say that because I know getting around the right people is important. Your mentors is important. Um, but again, some people may just feel like, I don't even know how to get to that place. I don't even know how to get there. What do you tell them if it just seems like it's that impossible?
Yeah. I love what you said about getting around the right people, because there is research that says, I think the five people that you're around the most are the people that you will become most like. Um, so making sure that the people that you're around are kind of, I hate the word manifesting. I love it, but I feel goofy saying it. But the people that you're around are manifesting the life that you want to live, right? Gosh, but how to keep them committed to the wish list that they have, even when it feels too big? I would say probably, this also sounds a little cheesy, but like taking the wish list and then moving it into goals, right? So if the wish is something really big and feels flighty and unrealistic, how can we backwards design that, right? What do you have to do to get there? And then what do you have to do to get there? And what do you have to do to get there? And so then what's the step you take today?
I love that.
Right.
Action items.
Yeah. And then make a commitment. What's your commitment before the next session? And who's going to keep you accountable to that? And let's just move forward.
That's good. Would you say there are a certain amount of sessions that it may take for a person to truly break through? Or would you recommend that therapy is something that really just could be afforded to have been done all your life?
Yeah, I think for some people, if it's a really specific concrete issue, maybe it'll take us just a few sessions and we'll come to a close with that. They'll move on with clarity. And I think, yeah, there's other people on the other end of the spectrum who maybe they've solved the problem they came into therapy for, but like you say, life happens, there's new problems. Even if there's not problems, they recognize that they can continue to grow, and therapy helps them with that. Um, so I really like to emphasize, you don't have to be broken for therapy. There doesn't have to be something wrong with you or your life. Therapy is just a place to continue to grow, to continue to flourish. So it's not for coming to fix your brokenness. It's coming to just grow and expand.
I love that. I love that. It's not just to fix your brokenness. Got that. Love it. Love it. Um, there's something else I kind of want to talk about as we wrap things up here. When I was looking on your website, there was just something I saw in there that really resonated with me. And it was a statement. It says, somewhere along the path of life, you got lost. You became a character in someone else's story. You forgot what you needed to feel fulfilled and connected. You followed someone else's rule book and put society's opinion on a pedestal above your own. Your voice got softer until one day you didn't hear it or recognize it, and anxiety started seeping in. And I know we talked earlier about there's a lot of different reasons that people may have an anxiety. But when I saw that, I started thinking about how adults can easily say, I know one day my voice just started to get softer. I know one day I just started to kind of do what I was told and what was my responsibilities, and kind of take a back seat in my own life. Do you think society allows adults to maybe do that, or um, a, society is more understanding of adults no longer maybe having a voice at times compared to our youth? Do you think society is not really as open to our youth and as understanding when they begin to no longer, raise their voice as they once did?
I think the youth of this generation have, generally speaking, quite loud voices that they're pretty confident in using. And I think we saw that a lot um, during quarantine, during a lot of protests that came up. Gen Z was out there. Um, they were really speaking up, and I do think that makes some of the older generations uncomfortable. And I think that's historically true. I think that when the young generation is noisy, the older generation is uncomfortable. And so when they get quiet, I think it does make the older generation a little more comfortable. Um, I will say, I have parents of clients who see that in their kids. They've lost their spark. They're quieter than they used to be. And I'm worried about that. And so I think maybe um, society might appreciate the quietness, but I think the people who specifically love specific youth see that quietness as a loss of spark, a loss of personality, and a reason for concern.
That's a very good point. And I love how you said Gen Z in particular, because, sometimes the younger generation, in particular Gen Z, may get a bad rep, especially when it comes to the workforce. Like they value their own mental health. They're not just as willing to kind of want to do what you say. But it's the kind of thing where it's like, maybe we should listen to that more, because it's important to go to work. It's important to feel valued at work, but it's also important to speak up, or whenever you feel like something is no longer serving me the same as it used to be, and I need that to be heard. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I want to kind of address just one more thing. You as a counselor, one thing I always wonder is, as you are taking on so much response and feedback from your clients, how do you keep yourself like mentally, grounded, or center in on your peace after, multiple counseling sessions?
Yeah. So I work on a great team of people. We have team meetings every week where we process our cases and we process how we're doing. And we have our consult meeting every other week where we do the same. And we're always available to each other. So we have a great team that's supportive. Most of us have our own therapy that supports us, which I think all therapists should have some therapy of their own at some point in their life. It's critical. And then just basic self-care, self-maintenance, making sure I'm eating, making sure I'm sleeping, making sure I'm moving. That's all what keeps me balanced.
That's good. That's good. Balance, balance, balance. It is so key and critical in our life. So, Lauren, before we go, can you tell people how they can connect with you if they would like to book a counseling session with you?
Sure. So they can find us at theflourishingway.org. And that is the best way to schedule a session. You can also find me on Psychology Today.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I think our listeners are going to be definitely helped by the conversations held today. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for joining us this week on Intellectual Beats. Did you enjoy the conversation? Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and let us know what you thought about this episode. You can also visit our website at intellectualbeats.com for more content. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast so we can continue bringing you content that will engage, uplift, and challenge you to make an impact in your everyday life.